Today we're going to go over two really important concepts when you're graphing lines, and those are intercepts and slopes. They're on ISN page 34. We're going to talk about them, and then I'll give you a chance to write some notes, and then you'll have a chance to practice them after. So the first idea is intercepts. I always think of an intersection. And what you're looking at is the intersection between the two axes. So you are looking for when the graph crosses the x-axis and when it crosses the y-axis. So when it crosses the x-axis, it is called the x-intercept. It crosses the x-axis. The y-intercepts is when it crosses the y-axis. So right there, the red point, that's where it crosses the y-axis. So let's look a bit at this. When it crosses the x-axis, you can actually find the coordinates for that point. And what you'll notice is that there is a point given in its some x value, but the y value is going to be 0 because the x-intercept, when you cross the x-axis, your y is going to be 0. You haven't moved up and down on the graph. Your y-intercept, when you cross that y-axis, that means your x is going to equal 0. Your x-coordinate, because you haven't moved left or right, if you think about that point, and then you have some y value where you crossed. So the x value is always going to be 0 on your y-intercept. And when you have an x-intercept, the value of y is always going to be 0. These are important ideas when you're looking for these intercepts, where the line is going to cross the axis. So let's write some notes on page 34. An intercept is the point, whoops, let's use a pen to do that. The point where the line crosses the axis, or points, I guess. The point where the line crosses the axis. If you're actually looking at a graph, you can find that point, the given axis. So if I am looking for the x-intercept, where it crosses the x-axis, it is going to be when y equals 0. Let's look for this point. There's my x-axis. There's the point, the intercept, where it crosses the x-axis. So your coordinate points for that one is going to be when x is 3 and y is 0, because you haven't moved up or down. When you're looking for the y-intercept, ooh, that might be hard to read, x actually equals 0. So right here on this line where it crosses the y-axis, x is 0 and the y-intercept is going to be 0, 2. That's the y-intercept for this line. So if you have a line, you can just find those points on your line. If you're given the equation of the line for the next example, you're using that same concept that when you want the x-intercept, that's when your y-coordinate is 0. So you're going to plug in 0 in this equation. So you're going to have a 3x minus 4. Now instead of writing the y, I'm going to substitute in 0. That's when this line is going to cross the x-axis. So when I solve for this, divide by 3, x is actually going to be 4. I have this point when x is 4, y is 0. Then I can find the y-intercept, and I'm going to say it again, y-intercept. When you find the y-intercept, that means x is 0 because you're crossing the y-axis and you haven't moved left or right. So you can substitute it into the equation of the line. You're going to have 3 times 0, use your brackets, because you plugged in the value 0 for x, 4y minus 4y equals 12. So when you simplify this goes away. 3 times 0 is 0. So you're left with negative 4y equals 12. You divide both sides by negative 4. And y is actually equal to negative 3. So when x is 0, y is negative 3. You could actually graph that line because you have the 2 points. I'm going to graph it in purple so you can see it. Look, when x is 4, y is 0. That means this line goes through the point right there. When x is 0, y equals negative 3. So it goes through the point that right there. So this line that you had the equation for goes through these points right there. So the other day you were finding tables of values to graph a line. We really can graph a line if we have 2 points, and 2 of the key points that we want to find are x and y intercepts.